executive order. Caroline was asked about this in the briefing, and she sort of suggested that maybe the administration doesn't necessarily view these as having the same weight. Is it the administration's understanding that he would comply with the verbal?
Well, again, the whole thing is just preposterous. So, as the Department of Justice has said in writing, nothing that the administration did conflicted with the court order. But there's a bigger issue here, which is the court order is patently unlawful. And if we got into a place in this country where district court judges could, for example, help is the wrong word, could interfere and direct specific targeting or non-targeting in, say, Houthi-controlled territory, could direct which general on the battlefield is going to be in charge of making which decisions, could direct, for example, we can send this military asset to this country, but not this country, could direct what intelligence we could share with Israel versus with Saudi Arabia. If a district court judge can be involved in the conduct of our foreign policy, under no definition do we have a democracy in this country.
So you called the judge's order just earlier today, quote, patently unlawful, end quote, and said that it was an assault on democracy itself. Does that mean that the administration is ignoring this order, and might you ignore future court orders that meet the criteria you laid out?
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the president the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
I think we got a fun one right here. Stephen Miller, you know him, we love him. Our daily civics teacher on the legacy media outlets. That's what I call him, honestly. And I like some of the things that he's saying. And this is some of the legal arguments that Donald Trump is actually presenting here and why he's using these old laws. This is why the Democrats like Jasmine Crockett are saying, oh, they're bringing out these zombie laws. Well, our Constitution is considered a zombie law, but we follow it still. They still say a constitutional crisis when judges can't undermine Donald Trump's power. Right? This is the funny part about all this, is that Democrats, they love to create a perception of reality that best suits their needs, that best suits their ends. And this kind of fantasy land thinking of the Democratic Party is some of the reasons why they get themselves in trouble. But in this debate, I think this is a must-see TV because it gets very fascinating. I don't know where the clip is. I saw a lot of clips of this interview out there, and I decided that I want to give my kind of reaction to it. This is me watching it blind. I only saw the first 1 minute of it, which is the intro you just saw. And let's get into it without further ado.
Review, let alone district court review.
So, Stephen, when you say that this person has no authority at all, this is how our system works. It starts with these judges and then continues up. At what point does it become, in your view, legal for the justice system to be looking at this and making a judgment? And I fail to...
To me, power does not come from the judge. Power comes from the Constitution. The judge is effectively a referee. It's supposed to be a separation of power. And what she's doing here, and this is why I'm saying, like, leftists got a very strong imagination. They love to imagine how things should be, right? But the problem is it changed with their feelings. It changed with the whims of the day. On one hand, they could be for my body, my choice. And on the other hand, if it politically suits them, they could imagine it in a different way. Oh, no, it's different. It's always different. And it always seems convenient that it always seems to benefit an argument you're making. And this is why things that's not subjected to written paper, this is why the Constitution is, many people praise it as the most well-written document in history, because of the fact that it never changes. It never switches up. It never decides, oh, we're going to make Donald Trump a king. No, it says, here's the powers. Here's what the president is allowed to do. This is within his boundaries. This is not within his boundaries. Judges are supposed to make sure that Trump stays within his boundaries. Trump's in his right to do that. The judges didn't interfere with Biden letting millions and millions of illegals coming into the country, but all of a sudden, all these DC judges, all these Democratic appointed judges want to interfere with Donald Trump's foreign policy. Make it make sense. And that's why I let in with the intro with Stephen Miller calling it out. It's like, yo, this is interference. The judges don't have this power. They're overstepping their bounds. They're overstepping the separation of powers. If they want to talk about constitutional crisis, these federal judges are participating in one, in my opinion. But I digress. Let Stephen Miller articulate his rebuttal.
To see how there's any other way, but to start with where we're starting here before you get to eventually the Supreme Court.
Well, so first of all, there's a term in law, justiciable. This is not justiciable. In other words, this is not subject to judicial remedy. When the president is exercising his Article II powers to defend the country against an invasion or to repel a foreign terrorist that is unlawfully in the country, he's exercising his core Article II powers as commander-in-chief.
Is Venezuela invading the U.S.?
This is a very important point. This is a Title 50 authority. It's a commander-in-chief authority. So just to ask you a simple question, you talk about how the system works. Does a district court judge have the right to direct or enjoin troop movements overseas? Yes or no?
Well, Stephen, my question, if you could answer my question first,
in other words,
is Venezuela invading our country in a way?
See, and this is also another thing. This takes me back when, especially when you argue with liberal women, they tend to do this thing. They want you to answer their question, but they're not, meeting you in the middle. They're not meeting you halfway. You're saying, hey, look, I'm trying to establish a boundary. That's what he tried to do. He tried to establish a boundary to make sure him and her are on the same page. Hey, can the judge interfere with a foreign thing here? The answer is obviously no. Okay, well, the president is in charge of the border. Should he not be able to manage national security within the country to make sure the citizens in the country are safe? Pretty much what he's trying to do is he's trying to tell her or show her the limits and give an example how the judges can't cross. There's certain things the judges can't do. And he was going to tie the point back to the fact that, hey, this is outside the judge's jurisdiction. But instead of, meeting him, having an actual conversation, she's like, no, is Venezuela actually trying to invade the country? Well, Venezuela emptied out all their jails to allow these guys to cross the border into our country. So we can assume that if we want. The same way that Russia assumed that Ukraine was going to invade Russia because they was going to join NATO. We could play the same game if you want. And this is the problem.
That would
TDA. So I'll answer yours and you'll answer mine. Under the terms of the statute, Tren de Aragua is an alien enemy force that has come here as detailed at length in the proclamation at the direction of the Venezuelan government. The statute says that a president has the ability to repel an invasion or predatory incursion that is directed by a foreign
state
government.
or a government, right? Are they a state or a government?
This would be. Yes, it is documented that TDA was sent by the Venezuelan government in the proclamation. And here's an even more important point. Under the Constitution, who makes that determination? A district court judge elected by no one or the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy? The president and the president alone makes a decision of what triggers that determination.
So do you then think
we
are actually at war with Venezuela, the nation state of Venezuela?
You're not hearing me and you're not understanding me. Read the statute.
Oh, man said, read the paper. Read the paper. I'm referencing things on the paper. I want to make a narrative about this. How can I paint you to be a bad guy? How can I get out of this? Hey, is Venezuela going to war here? What? I'm not saying I'm being triggered, but this brings up some fond memories in college. That's all I'm going to say.
Alien Enemies Act, 1798. It says if a predatory incursion is perpetrated by a foreign government. So it lists three
so lost.
Qualifying actions. It could be an act
of
war.
It does say in the very beginning there has to be a declared war against a nation or a state. That's what it says.
No. Wrong.
Look
up.
That was personal. Wrong. Ooh, it's just interpreting things. This reminds me of how, like, atheists interpret the Bible. They go, oh, you shouldn't judge. No, the Bible doesn't say that. You shorten the clip. The Bible says don't judge unless you're not prepared to be judged, aka don't do unto someone else you're not ready to do for yourself. So technically Christians can judge people. It's just the Christians themselves has to open themselves up to be judged as the same way they judge someone else. That's what the Bible verse says. But people who want to use people's morality against them to let them do their buffoonery will say, oh, you're not supposed to judge. You're supposed to let me wreck my life and then you pick up the pieces. No, I'm judging the hell out of you. I'm ready. Hey, I'm willing to be judged. I know I ain't perfect either. I don't give a damn. I'm human, but I'm not going to sit here and tolerate this crap that you're doing. And this is what it is. People love to quote Bible verses to make Christians like very passive. And they just give you half quotes. Like, yo, that's not the full verse. That's not the full quote. Find me the quote. And he's doing the same thing with this law. She's taking an interpretation that she want it to be on paper, right? This invisible thing on the paper. The guy's like, yo, it's not even there. What you talking about? And this is why I say CNN's job is not to inform people. It's to get them to buy into a perception. They're perception peddlers, aka propagandists. But I digress. Let's continue with this interview because it's getting good.
The statute is on my account on social media.
That's actually where we
Everyone
found
can
it
go
earlier.
Yes. It says, or a predatory incursion, or an invasion. The statute delineates 3 criteria for triggering the Alien Enemies Act. One is an act of war, which, by the way, an invasion is an act of war, but put that aside. One is an invasion, which this is. One is a predatory incursion, which this is. So it actually meets all 3 statutory criteria. But with respect to this particular statute, the proclamation is utilizing the incursion and invasion language in the statute.
So,
but this is a very important question because no, hold on. It's a very important question. You said the way our system works is the President of the United States commands the armed forces of the country, commands the foreign policy of the country, and that's subject to district court review. That is fundamentally untrue.
I never said that, Stephen. I did not say.
That has never been true.
This was not a military operation.
She said that all the law stems from the courts, and then everything else follows, if I remember correctly.
I mean,
a district court judge can no more enjoin the expulsion of foreign terrorists to foreign soil that he can direct the movement of Air Force One, that he can direct the movement of an aircraft carrier, then he can direct Marco Rubio to engage
do you think
exactly like I called it out from the beginning of this video before he even finished his point and this is one reason why she didn't want to meet him in the middle, right? Because that's how you have a conversation. You acknowledge what someone says. Okay, yeah, judges can't direct military. Okay, what makes you think you can direct this? And she would have to make the case. One thing I noticed about a lot of Democrats, a lot of like people who are on the left, they don't want to make an argument for why you should do things their way. They just love to sit back and critique you and say, no, that's not good enough. Make half-hearted statements, surface-level statements like everyone deserves health care. Okay, how are you going to do that? Health care costs money. It costs people's time. How are you going to make it appealing for someone to give their time towards something when they get no direct benefit from themselves? This is why I say socialism is slavery. Progressives don't have a clear, articulate answer in reality of how they can make that system effective. That's why every self-proclaimed socialist who attempts socialism always seems to do it wrong, but they want us to try it here. No, I'm okay. I'm okay, bub. Every time you try this thing, they fail? Nah.
Does the Supreme Court has any say over this or not? Does the Supreme Court of the United States have any say over the things that you were just outlining right here?
And then she's trying to give it to him to make an argument for her. Like, make it make sense. Make it make sense. He's going to say no. We already know he's going to say no.
I believe what the Supreme Court will say is what I just said, which is that the president's conduct here is not subject to judicial review.
Okay, but you are acknowledging that they do, in fact, have a say here, even though you think they may agree with you.
The problem is the Supreme Court is supposed to be kind of the referee. The Supreme Court is supposed to enforce the rules that everyone kind of knows. This is the Constitution. Right? Think of it like a basketball game. We all know how the game of basketball is supposed to play, right? We know what a travel is. We know what a foul is. You know how many points someone can get. But if a referee makes a call that is not in the rules of basketball, beep, beep, beep. Hey, that's a 4-point play because the player who shot the 3 was under 6'4". We're going to be like, that's not a rule. Well, I'm enforcing the rule. I'm the referee. I can decide how things go. That's how the district courts are acting like. They're acting like a rogue referee that's making random rules or superseding what the rules allow them to enforce. Someone foul them, but you don't like the player, you call it a flagrant 2, giving the other team the ball, free throws, and the ball. You're like, yo, you can't be making a calls like that. That's just a regular foul. You made it a flagrant 2. How you? I just don't like the player. You can't rule based on you can't enforce rules based on how you feel, and that's how many people are interpreting what these federal judges are doing. Because they don't like Trump, they're extending their legally allowed powers, entrusted in them by the Constitution. You're rigging the game, essentially. And this is what we're talking about. I think this is why a lot of people have a problem with these federal judges, especially when they're democratically appointed judges. That's the same as a referee oversighting a game where he got paid by one of the teams. He's going to give them favorable calls. And this is how we're seeing what the judges are doing here. Leave a like for me in the comment section if you like my analogy right there. But I digress. Let's continue with this video because we're about to wrap it up.
We are expecting is the Supreme Court to say what has always been the case, which is when the president is using his powers as commander-in-chief, those determinations are not subject to judicial review. In other words, the president's designation of Trinidad as a foreign terrorist organization and as an alien enemy are part of his inherent plenary authority. There is no way.
At what point in the system, Stephen,
how are you going to expel? Hold on. How are you going to expel illegal alien invaders from our country who are raping little girls, who are murdering little girls, if each and every deportation has to be adjudicated in a district court judge? That means you have no country. It means you have no sovereignty. It means you have no future. It is fundamentally incompatible to have a country and have individual expulsions adjudicated by a single district court judge.
I'm just trying to figure out at what point in the system do you, because what does the Trump administration believe? Because we do have separation of powers in this country. I hear what you're saying.
Yes,
you're saying
separation
the district
of powers.
court does not
this is the judiciary
have
interfering.
Stephen,
She just made the point. Separation of power. The minute you said that, you got him. That's what he was trying to go the whole way. Hey, there's certain things within the judge's jurisdiction that they can do, and there's certain things that the president can do in his jurisdiction. The president is doing things within his jurisdiction, aka Donald Trump is doing something in his lane. Judges, you're doing something outside of your lane. That's the real constitutional crisis. Judges are out here trying to be overlords. No one elected them. No one put them into power. This is why, in my head, we might have to make a new amendment or something, pass a law or something where elected officials can override unelected officials. Because these unelected officials, they're some of the worst kind of people. You got appointed to your position. No American person know your name. They don't know who you are. And you're out here trying to restrict the president. You're trying to stop him from freezing foreign aid spending. Then you find out the judge appointed by Democrats got money from NGOs and foreign aid, and that's why he's trying to make the president spend money. You see, this is a problem. This is why I said Democrats are not the party of democracy. Democrats are the party of bureaucracy, because it seems like every bureaucratic person in D.C. is a Democrat.
The executive function. That is the separation of powers. That is the separation of powers.
Did you ignore the judge's order here because you thought you could?
So the judge's order and the actions taken by the Departments of Defense, Justice, and Homeland Security are not in conflict. And the Department of Justice has been clear that they are not in conflict. But
so you think that you did go along with the order that the judge put out? You do not think that the Trump administration defied this order?
As the Justice Department said, there is no conflict between the judge's order and the actions taken by the departments I just listed. But I'm making a deeper and more fundamental point.
Yeah.
The district court
if you don't
has
have
no
to follow
ability.
it, why didn't you?
The district court has no ability.
It was the same as when Joe Biden did the student loan forgiveness stuff for college graduates. It's the same thing. But y'all wasn't having all this constitutional crisis crap. Like, hey, the money is in the power of the purse is with Congress. Therefore, Congress has to be the one to do student loan forgiveness. All the judges did in that case was say, hey, Joe Biden, that's not within your jurisdiction because it's within this person's jurisdiction. That's what judges are allowed to do. Judges are pretty much the like I said, they're the referee. Hey, executive branch, that's actually supposed to be for here. Because what you're saying is, oh, you can't deport that. No, that's not the judge's job. The judge's job is saying, hey, this thing you want to do, that's not within your powers. It's within the Congress's power. That means it has to be a law through Congress for you to do that. You can't go into the executive branch and say, hey, you can't use a law that's already been passed by Congress. Like, make it make sense. There's too much mental gymnastics that the left is trying to do to justify their opposition to Trump. And then when you put in the political motivations of these judges from DC, a state, not a state, it's not a state, a district that is 90%, that voted 90% for the Democratic nominee. These judges appointed by Democrats. There's a motive here to interfere with what the executive branch is having because the executive branch is Donald Trump. That's all. That's what it really is. That's all it is. It's blind Trump derangement syndrome. But no, there was none of this outrage when Biden said, I did it anyway. I forgave student loans debt anyway. Oh, he found a workaround. That's why he was, but Donald Trump do the same thing. All of a sudden, oh no, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh my God, he's just ignoring the judge's orders. Where was this for Biden? And this is what gets Democrats caught up. This is what catches people about Democrats. This is why people get mad at Democrats. Because you always got an excuse for why your situation is different. And everyone see it as just the same. You're doing exactly the same thing Trump did. Biden got to prosecute the political opponents. But now the political opponent got into office. Oh, we should stop this political division. We shouldn't be weaponizing the DOJ after they got to do it. Make it make sense. Democrats get to throw a punch. And when Donald Trump gets up and ready to punch back, oh, no, we should stop fighting now. Come on. And this is the kind of hypocrisy many people are starting to notice about the Democratic Party. And this is, I think, is what is attributing to them being so unlikable right now in America. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would like to hear your thoughts and your perspective of this whole civil debate. I know it's been a long video, but I think it was an interesting discussion that I think many of you guys need to hear in its full context for the most part. I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.